What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about the most Canadian apologies ever. So today, I want to take a look at this Reddit discussion where somebody asked, what's the most Canadian apology you've ever witnessed in real life? LOL. LOL. Well, we'll see if there's going to be much LOLing here today. So, Canadians out there, you probably know this already, but here in America, Canadians, you're known for being very kind and polite. And I guess a big part of that is this thing that I've heard about called apologizing. We never like to apologize here in America. It is actually not that big a part of our culture. Seriously, if you apologize here in America, it's oftentimes looked at as an admission of guilt, like you've done something wrong. Whereas I think in Canada, it's a little looser than that. It's a little more casual. It's not so deep. You can apologize, and it's just a kind, polite thing to do. It's not the end of the world like it is here in America. So today, I really want to hear about some of these Canadian apologies and how exactly this apologizing thing is really supposed to work. Maybe us Americans can learn a thing or two. Let's take a look here, starting with road rage. A guy gets out of his car to yell at another guy who cut him off. This happened in Canada. Wow. Another guy actually got out of his car. That's aggressive. To yell at another guy. The other guy apologizes. Oh, wow. Guy who gets out of his car apologizes for being a hothead. Have a good day was then exchanged. Only in Canada. What? This is real? Like, actually? I can't, like, I mean, if this happened in the United States, this is, like, scary. I don't like to fearmonger about this very much, but here in the United States, as you probably know, like our gun laws are a lot looser. A lot of Americans own guns. You can keep them in your car if you have the right permits and license to carry and conceal. And I I think Americans are really like a little more uneasy about getting into conflicts, even verbal conflicts with other Americans, especially road rage. Because sometimes Americans are, you're just kind of assuming they might have an actual weapon on them, like a gun. So this situation, if a guy got out of his car to yell at another guy who cut him off, like got out of his car, like I know there's videos of people doing this in America and getting shot at because people are scared or the road rager is aggressive and has access to this kind of weapon, and it's really sad. But in Canada, it couldn't be more different. The guy who cut him off apologizes. The guy who got out of his car didn't just not pull out a gun. He apologizes on top of that. And they say, have a good day. This couldn't be more different than what I think the American experience would be. My goodness. I've had that exact experience a couple times living in Toronto. Really. I completely cut a guy off in traffic. My fault. He was in my blind spot. I didn't see him. He went ballistic. It's funny. It's kind of funny to hear about this too, because it's like, yeah, in these stories, Canadians are, by the end of it, hugging it out, saying, I'm sorry, have a good day, maybe getting a Tim's coffee later. I don't know. But at the beginning, it's like Canadians are very capable of raging, or these situations wouldn't happen to begin with, huh? Which is funny to me. I rolled down my window and I said, "Sorry, man, that was totally my fault. I didn't see you there." He immediately switched to apologizing for yelling at me. It was nice. This is so nice because, again, the reason this wouldn't happen in America is I think as a culture, we're just kind of taught never to go back on something we've done and admit we've done something wrong, let alone apologize for it. It's a sign of weakness, and if you show weakness, you're going to get taken advantage of, and all these sort of, I don't know, I think very American sort of cultural ideas that are not good, actually, not good, not productive. And it's kind of nice hearing about how this is handled in Canada. At least in, these are like maybe some of the more extreme situations of Canadian kindness and apologizing, but it's nice to hear about. I worked at a Home Depot as a cashier. Our job is to say hello and greet everyone. Well, I had this one guy come up to me and apologize because apparently a few hours earlier I had said hi to him and he had ignored me and walked past. Are you kidding me? Man, I don't think the world deserves Canadians. This is too pure. This is too wholesome. I had no recollection of this, but it happens all the time, and it didn't bother me at all. He explained he was having a bad day, and he actually felt bothered by his own behavior. So he came back just to say hello and explain his actions. He didn't even have to say sorry. He didn't have to apologize. No one even knew he did anything wrong, and he still apologized. And in a sense, it was also for his own well being and clarity of heart, which is really nice. Like this is I love hearing about this, honestly. This is so sweet. I was at the Apple store on the weekend with my significant other. Two other couples and us got involved in a three-way apology for line butting, like cutting in line, which ran around several times until we figured out none of us were actually waiting in the line. What? So you accidentally cut in line, but and you three of you were so busy apologizing, then you realized none of you actually were in the line. Okay, so okay. When Listerius was found in a bunch of Maple Leaf products 15 years ago, the CEO got on TV and publicly apologized and admitted this was their fault. That's the kind of accountability we need in today, especially here in America. People who are willing to stand up there and say, sorry, I was wrong, and it shouldn't be seen as a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of great character. And, like, that's someone you want to trust. Someone who's willing to go up and admit they've done something wrong and that they've learned from their mistake. Because everyone is going to make mistakes, but not everyone is going to own up to it. So, wow, that's amazing. He said he was sorry, and he let it happen. And he knew the company had lost. He knew that the company had lost the country's trust, whether it was motivated by guilt or a ploy to not lose so much market share. It doesn't matter to me. He apologized. I thought it took a lot of guts to do that. Yeah. It's funny because apologizing is so like taboo in America. And yet, I think when people do it, whether it's privately or in a big public show like this, I think people really respect you for it. But it's just interesting, like Canadians, you've built up an actual reputation, at least among us Americans, for being very willing to be apologetic. Maybe, I mean, there's memes and funny internet stuff about how, like, Canadians are saying sorry for the most ridiculous, unnecessary things, but it's like, I'd rather live in that world than the world of no apologies and no accountability. Reminds me of that meme. When Canada takes over the world, you'll all be sorry. Oh my god. Okay. Like, because the mandate, the world order under the Canadian regime will be you have to be sorry. That's why we'll be sorry. It's kind of scary. The buses that apologize for not being in service? What? Do they do that? Do they do this in Canada? Does the bus have like a little sign? I'm sorry, out of service? Not just out of service. It's a I'm sorry. This, I've never seen another country say sorry out of service on the bus. Oh my god. That's the most Canadian thing ever. That's amazing. This sounds amazing. Um what? This is a real thing. That just shows you that's Canadian culture right there. Not mine, but the Apology Act, which encoded into law that an apology does not constitute an admission of fault or guilt. Right. So in Canada, there is an actual law that says if you say sorry, it's not an admission of guilt, because Canadians use sorry much more loosely. Like if you bump into someone and you're saying sorry, which don't get me wrong, you should do that. But in America, it's like you bump into someone, it's like they're gonna say, "Excuse me," or "Oops," and then you're like, it's fine, no problem, you're fine. Like there's no use of the word sorry quite as much. Someone bumping into a door frame and absent-mindedly apologizing to the door. Oh my god, I don't. This could be borderline, like neurotic level of apologizing. Again, I think I'd rather live on this side of the like if you're gonna overdo it or underdo the apologizing, bumping into a door. Any Canadians out there done this? Bumped into a door and just knee jerk reaction is like, oh sorry. That's great. That's great. I bumped into a guy at a restaurant in Naples. We both said sorry simultaneously. I said, "Hey buddy, I'm the Canadian. I'm the one who says sorry." He was from New Brunswick. We had a good laugh. No way. Actually, just randomly out there in the world, in the wild, two people bump into each other, say sorry, and they know they are fellow Canadians. Once I was downtown Ottawa, and I stepped on the foot of one guy that that immediately apologized to me as if he was at fault. That is interesting. That is special. That is hard for me to wrap my American brain around. The American mind cannot comprehend this. It's like in Canada, when someone does something bad to you, you say sorry. But I think it's more like a ritual. You say sorry just to prime the other Canadian so that then they can do their part and say sorry. This is the perfect example of sorry not meaning sorry. It doesn't mean, oops, I did something wrong, apologies. It doesn't mean that. It means something more like excuse me, or everything's fine, don't worry about it. Sorry can mean something different in Canada. LOL, similar thing happened to me. I bumped into some dude and spilled his coffee, and he apologized to me. You spilled his whole coffee? And he still apologized. If you did this in America, you'd be in a fight. I mean, maybe not a fight, but man, they would not be happy, not be nice. And as an American, I would understand. I'd be ready to be berated. Like, this is an example of if you bump into someone and spill their coffee, a lot of Americans at that point would probably say sorry. I think that would do it, because that is bad. Especially spilled it on them. Maybe you're just trying not to be sued at that point. No apology is more Canadian than apologizing to the person who bumped into them. Exactly. I once bumped into a cardboard cutout at the grocery store. I apologized to it. I was going on a walk last week, and a guy walked past me carrying a package in one arm and his dog in the other arm. He sneezed pretty loud, but couldn't cover his mouth. He turned around and said sorry to me? It's like stuff that's not even affecting other people. Like the guy who went back to Home Depot to apologize for not acknowledging the greeter's hello. Like, totally unnecessary apologies. But that's great. That's great. I love it. It makes a better world. I used to work at the CBC in Toronto. Four of us were waiting for an elevator in the morning. When the doors opened, people got out. But all four of us were too polite to get on first. And then the door shut. We all started to laugh, apologizing to each other for being too polite while waiting for the next elevator. Apologizing for being too polite. Apologizing for missing the elevator because you were all trying to let everyone else on. This is where I worry about if Canada can you get things done? Like, does this ever stop the productivity? You're all missing work because you're standing at the elevator, missing it. That's funny though. If that happened, that's hilarious. That's very wholesome. The times I've been at the grocery store, and either myself or someone else has to mutter, "Sorry, just let me scooch by you there," and grab something off the shelf. It's too numerous to count. So this is actually something that happens in Canada. This exact phrase. "Oh, sorry, let me just scooch on by you." At the Robin's Donuts drive-thru. "Sorry, the debit machine is busted. Just come by and pay the ladies tomorrow?" What? Okay, this sounds like something that happened in 1967. Like, the world is not this pure anymore. You cannot come by tomorrow and pay. No one would trust you. What is Robin's Donuts drive-thru? Because that sounds like a nice place. I apologize to a dog that jumped on me. It wasn't a mean dog, just super friendly, and I got in its way. Or apologizing, that's maybe better than an inanimate object like a door, but there we go. Some of the most Canadian apologies ever. This absolutely lived up to the title. This was fantastic. I love this about Canadian culture. Sure, it can be overboard, it can be over the top, but this is just a better way to do it. Americans could definitely learn from this. Americans should use sorry and apologies more. It should be more common and just an act of politeness. And, I think it just extends out and makes a better community, better country, better people when people are willing to be humble and empathetic like this. It's something I really admire about Canada, all joking aside, even though this was mostly a funny discussion. But anyway, if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. If you've experienced any Canadian apologies yourself as a Canadian, that'd be hilarious to hear about. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Canada and learning about Canadian culture, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.